Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about One Piece Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I should also comment on it. I wonder, has the series ever really utilized that in any other capacity of like how every episode is a new Jolly Roger in the center of the O in One Piece. And obviously, first episode's Luffy, second episode's Buggy, and this one it's Usopp. But I'm like, those exist, but they probably use them a lot more in the manga when it comes to the characters and stuff. But I don't know if they've ever really utilized them like that. Like, I mean, they're not like legit like in the story Jolly Rogers, but it's just like right, like you'll find most panels of like or just like pictures online of just like the characters like pseudo like Jolly Rogers. So I'm like, I feel like that's probably something that's mainly used maybe in the manga and some of like maybe the covers and stuff like that, but maybe not everything in like in universe or anything like that. But yeah, we got introduced to our favorite liar, Usopp. Little bit of Boy Who Cried Wolf and a little bit of Pinocchio. Obviously, he doesn't have the extensive nose that he does in the manga and the anime. But it's like, yeah, he's the boy who cried wolf, and he just lies all the time. Which obviously, it's like Usopp doesn't do that as much later on because but it stems from him not being confident. You know, it's like it's easier to spin tales than actually tell the truth because I think he's always afraid to kind of tell the truth in so many capacities when you obviously be gotten to really, peek into his character in this episode in particular and get to know him. I mean, he's been doing it for like years of like screaming, oh, pirates are coming. And it's just like, yeah, they're going to come eventually. And you find out the sad reason why he does that because his dad was a pirate is a pirate. And for him, like by saying the pirates are coming, it's like a fun thing, but it's almost like keeping this hope alive that when the pirates do come, it means his dad's back and he won't have to be alone anymore because his mom died. Because especially as a child, he thought, hey, once dad's back from his adventures, everything will be fine and you'll get better, And it's sad that child in him never died. Like yes, like he's one of the gullible, lovable idiots of the Straw Hat Crew. I think that's why him and Luffy are. Because I feel like him and Luffy have a very specific, because Luffy has a very specific relationship with every member of his crew, but him and Usopp kind of end up being the biggest, like, idiots of the crew, and, that's why they kind of get along swimmingly, because they've gelled together wise, like, energy-wise and personality-wise so well, but I think that's just the sad part of it, just because I think Usopp just feels like he can never amount to like, right, the great adventurer that his dad is as a pirate, and he just kind of wants to live vicariously through that. So he tells the stories he tells, but he also has the aspect of, well, he also loves telling Kaya stories because he wants to impress her because he likes her. She's like, oh, she's my best friend. It's like, truth be told, she's his only friend. He doesn't really have anyone else in town that he's close with. Everyone else just despises him and doesn't like him because all he does is lie. But he really connected with Kaya because she likes his lies. She believes them and it's like, oh my God, you go on such wondrous adventures. And it also makes her feel better. So I think, especially when you can join that with what happened to his mom getting sick and dying. Of course, like he wants to do everything he can. Like, it's like, right, I try to use dad as a means to kind of keep you going. For Kaya, I'm going to use these grand stories that I'm making up to keep you going because it keeps you happy and it keeps you smiling and it keeps you healthy and going. Then I'll keep lying as long as it takes. And I think that's just a beautiful aspect to their relationship. Speaking of, I brought up Jolly Rogers, Luffy made theirs, and obviously it's a hot mess, and it's just like, Nami's like, no, you're not putting that on any ship of mine. And just, I love Zoro's just pausing for a couple seconds. It's unique. But they have to abandon ship because their ship is letting on water, so it's like, right, we can't, like, keep up with this thing, so we gotta find a new ship, and they go to, like, the Gecko Islands and end up finding their way to a shipyard where they meet Usopp. Nami wants to steal a boat, but Luffy's like, no, we're not going to do that. Why would we do that? It's like, that's kind of not the thing to do. Like, we're not those type of pirates. And maybe I don't remember Luffy really leaning into that, but maybe he did even early days, because everyone's kind of fallen in line with like the way Luffy operates as a cat. Like, he is like the buffoon that he is. Everyone follows him because of like the big dreamer that he is. It's obviously playing into one of the openings of One Piece, because the theme song just kicked into my head. But either way, he also got the big heart that he is. He always does the right thing, fights for the underdog. So Like, that is the all-inspiring thing. That's Luffy's superpower. So it is that situation of he does make people want to be better. And I've talked about it previously, and I think you kind of get to see that even more in this episode of just like how awe-inspiring he can be in some capacities. But either way, he doesn't want to be that type of pirate. My point was saying all that is like, I don't remember him leaning into that as much in the beginning of One Piece. Once again, don't have that vivid of memories. Like, once again, I know the bigger plot points of where things are going to go, but I didn't remember like specifics like that. I was like, did he always say stuff like that? Because I know that was always going to be a contrast with like who Nami is. Nami's very like, I do whatever I got to survive. And I think the episode really like highlights her very pessimistic side of it, because she kind of doesn't believe in people. She kind of believes people are, I mean, obviously she doesn't have much faith in pirates. She hates pirates, and she kind of assumes a lot about Kai because Kai is rich. You know, you kind of get from, you know, without even knowing One Piece, and maybe I'm only because I'm bringing so much of One Piece into it, you know, it's like, right, Nami's someone that's like, I've been through it all. Like, I'm someone who, like, it's easy for the haves versus the have-nots. And for her, it's like, right, it's hard to be, like, she has no sympathy for Kai, because it's like, oh, you're rich, you just keep things. And it's like, doesn't really know her, but it just assumes a lot about her, because it's like, right, because I think it makes it a little easier when you're just like, oh, everyone's the same. Like, you know, all pirates are the same, all rich people are the same, but kind of seeing the nuance of like, oh, Luffy's not like every other pirate I've ever known or met. Kaya's not like every other rich person. I just assume, like, I just assume the worst in everyone, considering her circumstances. Once again, won't get into those until we get to those in the episodes. But yeah, because of her circumstances, she kind of believes in the worst in people, that people aren't good by nature. And I think in turn has made her very jaded and cold towards the world. That's why she kind of, when you actually break down like the reason why she is kind of, I said gold digger, I feel like that was too much of a strong term to kind of use last episode, especially with the massive connotation behind using that terminology. Wish I hadn't actually said that now in retrospect, but it's like why she's so obsessed with money. I wouldn't equate like her like a gold digger with like Nami's. I mean, maybe you could like equate it, but I'd rather not. Like I said, I just feel like that's so negatively, such a massive negative connotation behind it, and Nami's circumstances aren't that. Her circumstances are why she's obsessed with money. I mean, that's still, it's kind of an innate part of her, and it's actually kind of a really sad aspect of why that's there. Once again, get to it when we get to it in the episodes, but her and Zoro are kind of on the same page of like, so what are we really going to do? Like, because he's like, oh, we'll talk to someone to get this ship. It's Luffy's plan. And Zoro's like, all right, so what are we really going to do? It's like, well, we're going to find some place with lighter security, and we're going to steal a ship. And Zoro's like, all right, I could get behind that. So kind of the more devious members of the crew, I guess you can kind of say at this point in time. And Luffy finds it's the Mary, right? I mean, it's been a while, so also hits me a little bit too, because I was like, I didn't think about it until I started talking about it. Now I'm like, dude, man. Because I don't want to say too much, obviously, because I don't want to go into spoilers, because it's definitely not something the show's going to cover, because that's way down the line. Well, not even that. Well, that's still quite a bit of ways down the line, so I'm like, I won't talk about that. But yeah, seeing the marriage just got me nostalgic. I'll leave it at that. We also got our introduction to Kuro pretending to be, what was his fake name? Clyde, something like that. A moment he kind of did the thing of like pushing up his glasses with his palm, I was like, I wonder if people are going to have an issue with that, because once again, like the whole, like, there's certain things that don't translate from anime to live action, so I wonder if, or manga and anime to live action, because the whole like, oh yeah, anime and pro thing of like pushing your glasses up, I was like, would people have an issue with him doing that, because it's like, oh, that doesn't translate well. But then I was like, oh, it wasn't until he did it the second time I was like, oh, right, I forgot. You don't do that just to do it. There's actual practical reason. And obviously we see later on what the practical reason is. And it's like, right, I forgot your weapons. And, you know, you do it out of force of habit because you're not wearing your weapons, but you're so used to having your blades on you that it's become force. It's second nature to you now. It's muscle memory, so that's why you do it like that. I had to completely forgot about it. Like I said, it didn't click in my head until he did it the second time. I was like, all right, right, your finger blades. But them going to see Kaya with, you know, Usopp kind of as their guard. Like everyone else, obviously, who's connected to Kuro, doesn't like Usopp around. They want to keep her as isolated, keep Kaya as isolated as possible. It makes sense, because there are 3 people around her. With the exception of Mary, the other 3 people around her are people who don't have her best intentions at heart. Don't have her best interests at heart, sorry. So obviously they want to keep Usopp as far away as possible. So they're not the biggest fans of him. Once again, to be fair, you wouldn't think much of it because everyone in town doesn't like Usopp. So it wouldn't be that crazy. But she's very fond of Usopp. Then there was a whole situation of them trying on clothes that Kaya was kind of, offering them. You know, they bathe and change into different clothes. And it's just like, oh, how does this make me look? And Luffy, she's like, you look like Nami. You still look like Nami. So I don't think Luffy ever views anyone in the crew like, I don't, I mean, I'm sure that the show, I was like, obviously the show has its fan servicey moments, but I feel like I don't remember, I mean, to be fair, Luffy is super oblivious, like, to women. You know, there's one particular character that's super into him, but to where I was in a series, he was completely oblivious to, like, her at all. Like, it's like, oh, it's super obvious, like, she kind of fell for Luffy, but, you know, he's kind of oblivious to it. So I don't think, he's just like, oh, I mean, it's oblivious to, like, the point, like, oh, like, you know, probably should compliment Nami on just saying how nice she looks, you know? And all Zoro had to add to the conversation to hey, I'm wearing black, but then she picks him out something else, he's like, actually, that's nice, you know? But they made their deal of like, right, we're going to see if I can convince Kaya to give us a ship. And if I can, cool. But if I can't, we'll go along with your plan. And Nami was so certain. It's like, right, we're going to go with my plan regardless because it's not going to work out because, you know, you have too much faith in her. But Luffy having his moment, even apologizing later, he's like, yeah, sometimes I kind of get so ahead of myself. But he's like, no, we're not sailors, we're pirates. And just like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to go well. And it's like, yeah, we dealt with an evil clown, an axe marine after we busted into like a marine base. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's like, and the way he talks about a ship too, especially when the way he talked to Nami, it's like, right, like a ship isn't just a ship, it's a home. It's actually another member of the crew. And it's like, which means so much when you know how much the Mary means to that crew, you know? And it's just like, right, you think a ship is just a ship, but it's not. And it just got me thinking about a scene really quickly associated with the Mary. Just made me go, oh God, I want to tear up thinking about another character pouring their eyes out, just like waterfalls. But him even saying once again that line of like, yeah, it's part of the crew, it's home, you know, and it's so many grand adventures waiting for us. And you can see Kaya like the brightness light up in her eyes because it's like, as someone who's kind of confined and stuck here and sick and lost so much, like hearing, you know, that's what she looked for. It's like Usopp's adventures, and to hear like, oh, like Luffy talks so passionately about being a pirate, because even everyone has their negative connotation of what they believe in, you know, when they think of pirates. When you think about once again, 95% of all the pirate crews out there, you're just like, okay, like they're not good people, but there are exceptions. Not even just Luffy's crew, there are other exceptions as well. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I was like, I just thought about that. I mean, I think for Luffy, he also benefits from like, well, he's the only one in his crew that's no, he's not. I was about to say something inaccurate. I was about to say, isn't he the only one in his crew that's actually a pirate? But it's like, no, there's another character that's definitively a pirate. But like, there's another character. I'm like, is that person a pirate? I don't remember their backstory circumstance. No, they weren't. They're not a pirate. But yeah, there's at least one person. But at least 80% of Luffy's crew is non-pirates. So, but they're kind of pirate adjacent. So, Nami's hatred for pirates for her respective reasons, and Zoro being the pirate hunter. So there's adjacentness, but only Luffy and another person in the crew are actual pirates, which is interesting. I don't know if I've ever sat, like, legitimately, it's stupid, it's such an obvious thing, but it's like, you never really think about it stuff until you sit there and think about it. It's like, I never thought about that before. Like, most of his crew's not pirates. I never thought about that. Because everyone, you know, I mean, they're pirates by association now because they're part of a pirate crew. They became pirates, but they weren't pirates pre-becoming part of his crew. So, like I said, except for that one person. They'll probably go into it more, jumping around a little bit. They'll probably go into it more next episode. But obviously we get the feeling like, oh, okay, there's something going on here. We don't really know what, they haven't explained what Koro's really behind, but you kind of get an idea because of what the chef said and like the other woman being like, oh, do you want to poison yourself? You know, once again, I don't know if that's just me bringing in my One Piece knowledge or just being like, well, I think that laid enough context clues to be like, oh, so they're poisoning her. That's why the moment the blue tea showed up, I was like, I was like, oh, right, that was their thing. Like, they're poisoning her. They're making her sick because they need her sick enough so that she's in a situation where she'll die because Kuro's trying to gain everything that she has because obviously he's in hiding. And he kind of has to rebuild everything kind of from scratch. But he found a golden goose opportunity laid out in front of him. So he wanted to kind of take advantage of that. So he needs Kaya sick, and eventually, like, if the poisoning doesn't kill her, will eventually just kill her himself in the moment in time. But he needs her weaker and frail. And the sad thing is the one person in her life that is in her corner that's looking out for her, considering everything she's been, well, two people. Obviously, Usopp's looking after her, but the other person of, like, in a noting capacity that can actually do something for her in that capacity would be, like, Mr. Mary, and, he gets, like, filleted. Not really, but shish kebab, I guess, would be the more appropriate terminology, I guess, with just getting, like, ran through like that. I don't know if this is just a show doing this or not, because obviously it's a big mansion, so you could easily get lost. But I love that Zoro and Luffy ran into each other, and he's like, "Oh, this is a maze." I was like, "Is that the closest we're going to get to them play?" Because I keep bringing it up like all the time. I'm like, "Are they going to utilize the whole thing about yes, Zoro has a horrendous sense of direction?" Because anytime he's not. Well, I was about to say, they're definitely not, because he was following Usopp, but it's like, if they wanted to, they would have made it so he still got lost. Because we've seen it. Zoro can literally go on a path and still be like, wait, how did I manage it happen to go the wrong way? That's Zoro. He could still get turned around even following a person. So it helps out a lot to follow someone. But I was like, nah, I don't think they're going to lean into it at all. But I almost wondered, I was like, oh, is that supposed to be a wink and a nod to that without really leaning into it? But probably be reading way too much into it because I want it to be a thing. Because that's one of my favorite character flaws of his. Is just like, yeah, he's horrendous. Because when someone's like, oh, they have horrendous sense of direction, I immediately think of Zoro. It's burned into my brain now. Anytime someone brings it up, I immediately think of Zoro. Because to me, I think he might be the fictional character with the most horrendous sense of direction. And I love how they've utilized that in arcs before, where he's on his way to a fight and he's like, shit, I got lost. And like, wait, isn't this where things are going down? And he's, it does happen. So either way. But while Luffy and Zoro get closer to Usopp and learn more about him, that, oh, his dad, Yasop, is part of Shank's crew, and it's like, oh, I draw an even bigger connection and line between Luffy and Usopp in that regard. We have Nami, who's trying to rob the place blind, picking up some stuff here and there, but ends up going into Kaya's room, and it's like, oh, so you're trying to rob me? And it's like, well, she's like, I am not a pirate, I hate pirates, but I'm not going to apologize for being me. And for Kaya, it's like, right, this house is big and empty. I have so much that I don't need. I want to give it away for people, for families and stuff like that, considering she doesn't have anybody. And I think it's a beautiful moment where you have Nami kind of like that kind of iciness, not iciness, but the way Nami kind of views everyone, that kind of pessimism that she had, you see it kind of melt away when she hears the way, she talks, the way Kaya talks about Usopp. It's like, oh yeah, it's both of their perspectives on it. It's like, right, him from his perspective of like, oh yeah, her losing her parents and how I've tried to help out in that regard, like her, and it's like, oh, after Usopp's mom died, her parents kind of took him in, and so it's like, for his perspective, it's like, oh, do you think she likes me? And so it's like, you're asking the wrong guy, and Luffy's like, I like you. He's like, no man, I don't. Never mind. But with the case of Nami, I even love that line where, it's like, Kaya had asked, have you ever lost anyone important close to you? And she was like, no, but you can see like that sadness in her eyes of like, that's not the truth, is it? And Kaya's like, oh, you're lucky. I'm jealous, of not having to go through that pain. But also Nami speaking from her own circumstances of saying like, right, don't let other people dictate you. You're a lot stronger than you think. So like, don't let Kuro's fake name and anyone else kind of make decisions for you. Like, you aren't just frail, that you are stronger than you kind of give yourself credit for. And I guess for Nami, it's like she's saying that to Kaya because she does see bits of herself in Kaya. And so I'm thinking she's saying things to Kaya that she believes Kaya needs to hear, but also things that she probably wants to hear, but doesn't quite believe about herself, Because Nami does put up a brave front in so many capacities. We just don't really know at this point that it's her putting up a brave front, which is everything that's going on. Even to the point Nami felt so bad about it that she actually started returning the stuff she stole. Even though she had made a whole point, like, right, I'm not going to apologize or feel bad about me being me. And it's like, she did. It's like, right, you're actually kind of cool. And even say, because it's like, oh, you're not really good at this whole friendship thing. It's like, no, she's not. Because once again, she sees people as a means to an end because of, once again, her circumstances. And so she doesn't want to get close to people. And, you know, because for her, it's just like people are just going to let you down in the end. And, you know, when you have that perspective, when you have that experience with people, it clouds your judgment towards anyone that you meet. Whether it's like she sees Zoro and Luffy as kind of a mean to an end. That's why she was willing to leave them to die. It's like, yeah, we're surrounded. It's every person for themselves type of thing. Because she's almost like, yeah, if you were in my shoes, you would do the exact same thing. I know you would. So. But obviously, Usopp and Zoro find out about Kuro, but Zoro gets knocked out, thrown in a well with Neri's body, and Usopp tries to warn the town, but no one wants to listen to him. It's like, once again, you've played The Boy Who Cried Wolf so many years that no one listens to you when the time actually comes. And he's just, that moment, just him staring off and thinking about that memory with his mom, the day she died, and just like, tear falling down his face, like, why won't anyone believe me? It's like, oh, Usopp. And how that ties into the Marine stuff. Which, like I said, I must have blanked out so much of this Kobe stuff. I'm like, is this them expanding? It's like, this probably isn't even expansion. It's probably exactly like it is in the manga and anime. But I'm like, I don't remember this much Kobe stuff. All I remember is like I said, like, it's just, I feel like I have a vague memory of like Kobe and Luffy like running into each other. Maybe it's this, but I feel like I don't remember until like I say, you see Kobe again and he's older. That was I can't remember if that was pre-time skip or post-time skip when we see like Kobe and he's older, because like his hair is different and everything. He's taller. Does he wear glasses anymore post-time skip? I feel like I might be conflating him with a different character that I'm from, maybe even a different freaking anime altogether. But either way, we go back to on the Marine ship, and Kobe's actually really good at all of this stuff. Once again, he was had no choice. It was kind of out of necessity and survival, because if he didn't, now Veda would have had a big issue with him. Yeah, Morgan's son thinking that he's hot shit. I'm not even bothering remembering the character's name. They don't even say his name. They just bring up the fact that he's Morgan's kid. That's about it. Because it's like, oh, nepotism has kind of gotten him the position. Like I said, that's why he has the insecurities he does, because everyone feels and everyone knows you only got your position because of the position your dad's in. You haven't really outright earned it. So Kobe's showing you up of like, oh, this wasn't that good. He's like, oh, what were you trying to do? Show me up. And it's like, oh, but Garp appreciated it. And even brought out a game. I don't know if that's like... It's obviously a game only for this world, but I think it's kind of an important lesson for Kobe of like, right, don't be so focused on trying to not lose that you... And it just shows that Kobe's got a mind for the game, because he ends up beating Garp multiple times. He's like, oh, good thing you interrupted because I was about to lose again. But obviously he's instilling a lot in Kobe because he sees a lot in Kobe, and it's just like, right, the potential of who he could be and what he can do. And it's like, right, if you kind of... We've got to basically smack these upstart pirates and put them in their place and let them know kind of where they belong, because we have to nip this in the bud now, because if we don't, they could be an issue even further down the line, so... But he ends up sending Kobe out there to kind of investigate, especially when they end up finding Luffy's Jolly Roger. And it's like, all right, we got to find these pirates. We got to nip this in the bud, and I'm leaving it up to you, Cadet. Kobe. And he ends up running into Usopp at the end of the episode, which I thought was interesting. I was like, I did not remember that at all. Also, once again, they're still doing it. I love that bounty situation thing that they do. Like Kuro's, he sliced through his, and then you had Arlong who chomped through his, which, speaking of, we do have our introduction to Arlong. Buggy had to piece himself back together, and, one of Arlong's dudes crewmates ended up coming to grab him up. So also, obviously, not our first introduction to the Arlong and his crew is also... I mean, to be fair, Arlong and his crew are your first introduction to the fishman species, so... I haven't seen it's been a while since I've seen the trailer, and I didn't watch it too much because I wanted to just kind of like enjoy the ride once again because I hadn't seen early One Piece in so long. But I'm like, is Octopus Dude there? I don't remember if Home Dude, the one that got Buggy, that dude, I don't remember if you ever see him later on. I know Octopus Dude pops up later in the show, but I don't remember if... Because where I was, I don't even know if Arlong had popped up again. I don't think he did. Stuff related to Arlong pops up later on, obviously, in the series. But either way, him kind of... it's like, oh, like, he's coming after Buggy because it's like, oh, I'm running things in the East Blue, and you, yeah, apparently you were up here, like, doing things, you destroyed the town. He's like, what? No, ransacked? Like, no, this place was already kind of a garbage place. That wasn't me. You know I wouldn't do that to you, Arlong, baby, come on. And it's just like, oh, ready to rip out his throat with his teeth. But it's like, hey, you really want to go after one? Like, want to go after that Straw Hat and Runt who's, like, around pretending to play pirates. He's going to find the One Piece. You know, but Arlong's got the perspective of like, yeah, you humans are just like doing this, an excuse for you humans to pollute our seas even more. Well, which, you know, that's where a lot of Arlong's issues come from. It's just like a lot of the fishmen's beef with humans. So it's like, I mean, that doesn't stop him from being the complete and utter asshole that he is, but still. And Buggy's so quick to sell out Luffy, like, hey, just like put me back into the game, coach. I'm ready. I can go after it. I can help you capture the Runt too, like, and kind of make it a real example of him. Well, because I'd assume Arlong hasn't gotten all the details. Because I thought it was interesting because Buggy made the line of like, yeah, I've got eyes and ears everywhere, which is funny because you have Arlong laughing because it's like, oh, it's funny because. I expected the line of dialogue. He's like, me too. It's like, yeah, but it's like, he literally does. That's why I'm like, yeah, he must not be well informed yet about the circumstances. It's like, right, that he hasn't been informed about Luffy yet because it's like, I guess it's not pertinent information, so why share that? So, either way, I'm excited to see where everything goes. Obviously, the next episode is going to be the conclusion of this Kuro situation and just seeing how everything plays out, everyone's circumstances. The last time we saw Luffy, he was scarfing down the poison food. Zoro's at the bottom of a well. Luckily, he has his swords. That might be where we kind of pick up a little bit of Zoro's backstory, if I remember correctly. Like, for example, the promise he made, the person he made a promise to specifically. But I'm like, is that where that comes up? Or was that the circumstances that kind of lead to that? I don't remember. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.